with so much going on in the news, with Russia, with Helsinki, with who knows what else, other shocking revelations we're going to hear about tonight, tomorrow, the day after that, there are some important other changes going on, shifts in the way the government is being run, or you might even say in the way it's being dismantled by the Trump administration. And here to talk about one of those ways, and perhaps more than one, is a good friend of the program. She's been on a number of times before. It's always great to talk to her. Nancy Altman is the president of Social Security Works. She is chair of the board of directors of the Pension Rights Center, and she is the author of a new book, as well as several other books. Her new book is entitled The Truth About Social Security, and she joins us now. So first of all, Nancy, as always, thanks for coming back on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Always a pleasure. And let me ask you, the term administrative law judges, to a lot of people doesn't mean all that much, but the Trump administration, in my understanding, is changing who those judges are and what they do in ways that could have pretty deep and long-lasting implications. First of all, am I right about that?
Yes, you are very right. And let me, as just sort of general context, respond, and you alluded to this a little bit in your introduction of me, and that is there are all sorts of things going on. There's a kind of circus on the surface of the water. You've got these tweets and all kinds of craziness, and look over here and look over there. While that's happening, there are very serious long-term radical right goals that are being implemented, and one is the destruction of our due process and an independent judiciary and civil service. So people are seeing that this administration and the Republican Senate are rushing through lots of unqualified ideologues to be on the lower courts. There's now a second Supreme Court nominee who's a radical right and will dismantle a lot of our rights. But most Americans, when you appear before a judge, you're likely to appear before an administrative law judge. And the administrative law judge is likely to work for the Social Security Administration. These are judges that are executive branch judges who are there to make sure that when we have rights, like we've earned our Social Security benefits, that if they are denied for any reason, we have a judge that we can go to. So there are about 2,000 administrative law judges across the government. About 1,600 of them work for Social Security. So if you have a dispute about survivor's benefits or a dispute about the amount in your account, or more likely, if you've become so disabled that you can't work and you're applying for disability benefits and you have to show that you have sufficient impairment that you can no longer work, you appear before an administrative law judge. Those have been part of what is called the competitive service, and the Office of Personnel and Management sets up a registry, and the Social Security Administration picks from that registry. They're people who've had many years of experience litigating and so forth. And the purpose of this, having a registry and so forth, is because we want these people to be independent. We don't want an administration to come in and say, hey, we hate Social Security, just deny everybody benefits. Well, unfortunately, President Trump, I hate to use that word, Donald Trump, on July 10th, issued an executive order that changes the administrative law judges from what's talked about as what's called being in the competitive service to being in the accepted service, which means that a head of an agency can appoint an ideologue and/or engage in nepotism, somebody's wayward son-in-law, to be an administrative law judge, and good luck. That may be who hears your case.
Well, and it has so many implications that I think go way beyond what people might think of at first. first of all, it's a technical, I mean, as I understand it, to be this kind of a judge it's a technical position. You're looking at the law, you're looking at the particulars of the case of the person who comes before you. For example, are they truly disabled and entitled for Social Security benefits? And even to get to that point, I think you have to go through an enormous, number of hurdles to prove that you are in fact quite disabled. And there's an enormous waiting line because Republicans have been cutting in Congress, have been cutting the administrative. But so you've been through essentially hell already to get there in many cases, and they're just supposed to interpret the technical issues of the law in a neutral way. Now, what Trump has done is basically said we can replace them with people who think the way they do, with people who may have the same prejudices and bigotries that we do, whether it's against poor people or minorities or what have you. And whatever it is, as you say, it could be somebody's, ne'er-do-well nephew or whatever, but it could also be somebody who says, I promise that I won't let more than one person in 10 claim their Social Security benefits, or something outrageous like that. Somebody who actually intends to deprive people of their rights to these benefits. That's what really bothers me about it, is you can put in people who for ideological reasons or just stinginess or just plain meanness, and I think all of the above applies to the current administration, just don't give people what they're entitled to.
Exactly, and that is exactly what I think the intent is behind this executive order. There's already been pressure on the administrative law judges. They are a group of people who are, as all civil servants have devoted their careers to the public good, but they are already feeling pressure. If they, I've talked to them, and anecdotally they say, we're supposed to decide every case independently, but if we're an outlier, if we approve too many cases, we're going to get called up and yelled at. So that there's a human tendency to, and they try to resist this, to say, I've granted 6, I better be careful. And that's, of course, shouldn't even be in the back of their minds, and they try to not make that part of their thinking at all. So it's already happening in the sense that there's already that pressure. But you can imagine if you're hired and the criteria are that you're a right-winger who hates poor people, and you are beholden to your job by a political person who wants to dismantle the Social Security program, there's going to be, even the best-intentioned person's going to feel the pressure, and if you're not well-intentioned, you'll be denying benefits right and left. And these are people who have earned these benefits. These are earned benefits. It's a very strict standard. You cannot engage in what they call substantial gainful activity anywhere in the country. And they, as I say, these are benefits people have earned. It's already extremely hard to get them. And this is just going to make it not only harder to get, but really unfair, where people should get them and they won't be able to. And we already know, because of the long lines, the backlog, that I think it was 10,000 people last year died waiting to get a hearing before the administrative law judges, and
which they probably consider that a win.
And people become homeless, they lose their houses, they go bankrupt, and now there's going to be court packing, where to the extent they hire new judges, they're going to be ones who pass the litmus test of wanting to deny benefits.
And by the way,
I don't want to be horror. I mean, we're fighting this as much as we can. I hope with a new president it'll be undone. I don't want people to feel discouraged. If anyone listening is unable to work because of impairments and you've been paying into Social Security, these are benefits you've earned, and you should go in and demand them. And if you don't get them, let us know, because we are fighting to make sure this doesn't happen. But so I don't want to be too doom and gloom.
No,
but
I understand.
There's definitely.
And just to jump in, let us know means socialsecurityworks.org, I assume, is where people should go to let us know. And also, I do want to say, again, we're talking with Nancy Altman, president of Social Security works. And Nancy, I want to share with you something that just came in from the 0 Hours Facebook page. It's a comment on a video. I'm not sure which one, but among other things, it says in all capital letters, Nancy Altman, ... needs to be in charge, all capital letters, of Social Security, 4 exclamation points. She knows and shares ... the truth, in all capital letters, 4 exclamation points. So I agree with this person.
Well, I really appreciate that. I appreciate that. And the wonderful thing at Social Security is you've got civil servants who have dedicated their careers to this program, and all this is happening all over the government. They are taking away their rights. They're making it easier to fire people. They are attacking their pensions. They cannot succeed in dismantling Social Security because it's too popular. And so they are trying to kill it with death by 1,000 cuts, both squeeze the funding and making it very hard for people who are trying to do their jobs to do them.
I agree with that 100%. They hate Social Security because it's a great government program that works. So they're determined to destroy it, but they won't take the political heat because it is so popular. So they're destroying it covertly in these ways. And I also think, I said in my introduction that it's part of the Republican agenda of dismantling government. I think that's why they don't like the idea of non-ideological civil servants, who, I keep going back to this, the phrase public service used to be an honored thing to do in American society, and they're trying to make sure that people can't perform public service anymore, that only their minions could go in and destroy government. But Nancy, before I let you go, I do want to talk about the fact that you've been very involved in fact, you spoke on Capitol Hill, I believe, about the new Medicare for All caucus that has formed among House Democrats. And I think it's a really exciting development. So we only have a couple minutes left, but I thought maybe you could say a word or two about that before you go.
Absolutely. There is growing momentum for Medicare for All. It's a common sense response. Medicare was simply supposed to be a first step, and the American people, when you poll this issue, it is extremely popular across ideology and every other way that it's an American idea that all of us have these inalienable rights, and one of them is to guaranteed high quality health insurance. And our leaders are beginning to listen to us. We are leading our leaders. And what is most important is that people vote in November for candidates who are in favor of expanding Social Security, expanding Medicare, not cutting these programs. We get leaders in, and we will. We're in a morass now, but if we can throw these Republicans out and elect people who share our values, then I think it will not be long before we have expanded Social Security and Medicare for all.
I think you're so right, and I think it's so exciting because you and I remember a time when expanding Social Security and providing Medicare for all were considered out there ideas. And I'm not saying that because we're old. I'm saying that because it was like 3 years ago.
It was just a few years ago. It's so interesting the way things have changed. There are 122 Democrats who have co-sponsored legislation in the House of Representatives for Medicare for All. This caucus, which is just formed, is growing by leaps and bounds. This morning it had 66 members, and while we were having our press conference about it, 3 more members said, sign me up too. So it is growing, and everyone who believes in Medicare for All should contact their members of Congress and get them to sign on to the Medicare for All legislation and become part of the Medicare for All caucus.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's another exciting development, along with the 16 senators who co-signed the Medicare for All bill in the Senate. So I think we're really on our way, and we've got to go from these numbers to even bigger numbers, and I think we will. And I agree with you, Nancy Altman. I think we're going to get Medicare for all. I think we're on our way. We just need to get out of this. You called it a morass. I might call it something else, but I wouldn't be allowed to on the air. So unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. But Nancy Altman, president of Social Security Works and author of the new book, The Truth About Social Security, thanks so much for all this great work, and thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.